Hello everyone, Shinto Bean here with some more Warhammer Combat Cards content. Happy New Year! And now that I've been playing this game for nearly 3.5 years, I decided why not make a video rating the game itself based on a bunch of criteria that I thought up of. So here we go. Let's start off talking about how the game looks, the visuals. Now I think the visuals in the game, they're pretty simple. For the card game that it is, I think the visuals look pretty good. One of my favorite parts is how the cards themselves look, especially when you zoom in and see the full version of the card. The art style is nice, and then they use the actual models of the miniatures, which is amazing. Really like that. And honestly, if it weren't for these miniatures, I don't think I would have continued playing this game. Now as for the in-game visuals, including all the animations, for the traits and the attacks and the Warlord special rules and whatnot, some of them look better than others. Again, they don't really look that amazing, but they look decent enough. I think my biggest gripe is that some things like, the ranged attacks look the exact same across all factions, so it doesn't matter if you're like Tyranids or Necrons or Tau or Eldar, they're all just firing what looks like bolters. And I get why they did that, just for simplicity and to be able to see what's going on, but still, I feel like it could be a little better. So let's give the visuals a 7 out of 10. Now next let's talk about the sound of the game, which I'm going to split into two parts. First of all, the music is outstanding, and many of you may play the game muted, so you might not hear the music, but there's the main menu music, and then each faction has its own specific track, and they all sound really amazing. The one minor gripe I have is that some parts of the tracks are very quiet, and then suddenly they get really loud, but again, that's just a minor concern. So I give the music 9 out of 10. All the other sound effects in the game, including the attack sounds and all that, are rather poor quality in my opinion. I don't really like listening to them. It's just really repetitive and doesn't really add very much to the game, so I usually play with those sound effects off. There's also no voice lines or dialogue whatsoever in this game. So I'm going to rate the sound effects pretty low. We'll give it about a 3 out of 10. Now let's move on to the most important part of the game, which is the actual gameplay that occurs in the battles that you play. Now, this is not really a very exciting game to play. I'm just going to say it up front. It is a card game, so if you like card games and you like Warhammer, then, well, that is the target audience. But even in terms of like card games, it's not really the funnest one I've played. But it is more of just a casual experience, and I think it works in that way. It is a mobile game, so you can just pick it up and play it whenever. I think a lot of the enjoyment comes just from collecting cards. That's a big part of the game, is collecting all of your favorite models from the tabletop, and then putting them together in a deck, creating these different synergies and combos, and you have the satisfaction of seeing them wipe out the enemy forces. So it's a fun little game. I think too many games out there just make things overly complex, and it just doesn't become fun anymore. With this one, I really like it for its simplicity. So I'll give the gameplay a 7 out of 10. Because there's always room for improvement. I think most people would probably tire of the gameplay because it's very repetitive and there's only really one way to play the game. So, additional game modes might spice things up, but it doesn't seem like that is really in the cards for now. Now, connected to the gameplay is the progression in the game, which is quite important for players who are just starting out. Is this a game that you want to play for the long term? And, well, I have to say, the only way to play this game is a long term. It is very slow, and it takes a whole lot of grinding to unlock the cards. Again, collecting the cards is a big part of the game, and there's just so many cards out there. Just such a massive amount that there's no end, really. So I like how much variety there is with all the cards, all the models that are represented from the tabletop, but it is also one of the weaknesses of the game is you end up with a lot of bloat in the card pool, and there are a lot of cards that are just kind of useless, and the only reason that you would ever use them is for the keywords in the campaigns. And then it just becomes very inefficient. It feels good to open packs of cards, but actually a lot of those cards are cards that you don't need or don't want, so actually getting the cards that you want is it takes a very, very long time. And then there's the in-game economy. We could talk about that for a few days, but that has gone through a bunch of changes, some good and some kind of terrible. Upgrading your cards, again, is very difficult, and it takes a lot of time to accumulate those resources. So it's just a huge time commitment that I think most people don't have the patience for. Of course, the other option is to, purchase things with money, but most of the deals in the shop are just absolutely terrible, and they've gotten worse over time too. So I'm gonna rate the progression pretty low, let's say 3 out of 10. So let's talk about the balance of the game. Is the game balanced? Well, first of all, let me say that I think balancing 500 plus cards perfectly is an impossible task, and certainly not all warlords are equal. Some are much better than others. Same goes with bodyguards, but the game inherently becomes imbalanced because of the way that you can upgrade your cards. So just depending on how much you've upgraded your cards versus your opponent, and it's going to make all the difference. Now, if you've been playing the game for a while and you've expanded your collection to get enough cards, then it doesn't even matter that you have some weak cards. You can still get by and win games, but I think it's a real struggle when starting out for newer players to actually be able to win, especially when the matchmaking is kind of broken and you're continually matched against enemies that are far higher level than you, which is an issue that has plagued this game from the beginning, I think. I think it's gotten slightly better over time, but it's still an issue. So I'm going to give the balance, including the matchmaking, a 5 out of 10. So we talked about the visuals, the sounds, the gameplay, the progression, and the balance. Now let's talk about the worst aspect of the game by far, and that is the performance of the game. Does the game run smoothly? Is it a well-polished game? And I am afraid I have to say no. This is one of the buggiest and glitchiest games I have ever seen. It seems like there's always some new glitch going on, and the game suffers from a horrendous amount of lag. Like, it is ridiculous. I don't think I've ever seen a game that is as slow as this one. And without the ability to increase the game speed at all, the lag is just adding insult to injury. A lot of the little minor gameplay bugs that pop up here and there are usually eventually fixed, although it sounds like there are some bugs that have been in existence since the start of the game. But the lag is really the worst part of the game for me. It's the most frustrating thing. So for performance, I'd have to give this game about a 2 out of 10. Despite all the flaws, I have been playing the game for over 3 years now, so I do enjoy it. How much longer am I going to play this game? I don't know. But all things considered, my final objective verdict of the game, let's give it about a 6 out of 10. What do you think? Let me know in the comments whether you agree or disagree with any of the things that I talked about and what you would rate this game on a scale of 1 to 10. One final note, the community is another very important and vital part of the game. So if you want to discuss more combat cards, I think Discord is one of the best places to do it. So if you haven't already, check that out. But that is it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.